start. I believe we are now live. Okay. The Thursday, May 28, 2020 virtual regular meeting of the Brisbane Planning Commission will now come to order. This virtual meeting is compliant with the Governor's Executive Order N-29-20 issued on March 17, 2020, allowing for deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Consistent with the order, this format provides a safe environment for staff, planning commissioners, and the public while allowing for open participation. The Planning Commission meeting is being broadcast on Comcast Channel 27 and the city's YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/BrisbaneCA. The agenda materials may be viewed online at brisbaneca.org. All written comments submitted in advance of the meeting have already been provided to the Commission. For those who did not provide written comments, a call-in telephone number was provided on the agenda, which can be viewed online at brisbaneca.org. The phone number and instructions will also be provided during the meeting. I will announce time limits for public comment during the particular item. Staff, please call the roll.
Commissioner Gomez?
Here.
Commissioner Gooding?
Here.
Commissioner Mackin?
Here.
Commissioner Patel?
Here.
Commissioner Sayasan?
Here. Adoption of the agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please?
I make a motion that we adopt the agenda.
Second.
I have a second.
Second.
And staff, can you conduct the voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Sayasan?
Aye. The motion passes with 5 ayes. Next item is the consent calendar. If there is a member of the public who wishes to remove an item from the consent calendar, please contact us and let us know. We'll wait 1 minute. While we wait, does any commissioner wish to remove an item from the calendar? Okay, I see no one. Okay, we have 10 seconds remaining. Okay, I've stopped the timer. Okay, so no one wishes to remove an item. May I have a motion to adopt?
Move to adopt.
In a second? I'll second. Okay, staff, can you conduct a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Sayasan?
Aye. The motion passes with 5 ayes. Next is oral communications. If there is any member of the public who would like to address the Commission about an item that is not on tonight's agenda, you may do so now. We will wait 3 minutes. Okay. Start a timer. And I think we should reiterate for the public when you call the number on the screen, which is 669-900-9128, it will ask you to enter the meeting ID, which is also listed on the screen, but I'll read it. It's 911-1598-6805. After you enter the meeting ID, you press pound. That may prompt you for a participant ID. You do not need to enter anything else. You can just press pound one more time to enter the waiting room. Okay, while we're waiting for oral communications, I'll turn to written communications. We did receive one letter from a Brisbane resident, Prem Lau, requesting a soil report for the 388 Kings project. Staff, do we have any other written communications?
No, Madam Chairman.
We have 1 minute left. That's 1 minute warning for oral communications on items not on the agenda. That concludes the oral communications period. We're now closing oral communications.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing. It concerns a setback exception modification, SE-1-20, 285 Santa Clara Street. It's an R-1 residential zoning district. The applicant seeks to allow construction of the entry stairway and landing within the side setback. Jerry Cole is the applicant. Martin Walker is the owner. Staff, can we have the report?
All right. As the chair just said, this is setback exception modification at 285 Santa Clara Street. The request is to modify the setback exceptions and allow the landing of a proposed stairway to extend 9 inches into the required 3-foot setback. This stairway is providing exclusive access to this single-family home. Here's a couple photos of the existing conditions looking down the side setback there. You can see that the front door there is at a 45-degree angle. Just keep a note of that. There was work done in 2004 that was approved by the Community Development Department that led to the current configuration of the interior of the home and the front door being in this spot. The stairs were not completed at that time. There have not been stairs there since. The proposal is to have stairs on grade, beginning roughly where the garage door is, or in line with that garage door, going for about 15 feet, and then it'll become stairs, a middle staircase that extends to the front door. The steel staircase is going to be about 4 feet above grade, and the stairs itself are set back 3 feet, as you can see right here. It's just the landing, and the landing and stairway is designed to meet minimum building code, so that is the reason for the landing protruding slightly out into the setback. Per Brisbane Municipal Code 17.32.070, subsection A2, there are 3 findings that need to be made to grant the setback modification or modification to the setback exception. The first one is the modification must be to gain access to the property residence. As I mentioned earlier, this is for a stairway that goes to the front door. It is for the exclusive access to the home here. The second finding is the modification is necessary because of unusual or special circumstances relating to the property. The property is a narrow lot. It's substandard. It's 25 feet wide, and to in order to have a stairway that would meet the setback exception would require significant modifications to the interior of the home, and the 45-degree angle of the door is also an issue for building code requirements. The third finding is visual impacts of the modification are minimized. The stairway and landing only extend about 4 feet above grade. It's behind an existing privacy fence that's approximately 8 feet tall, and the stairway, as I mentioned, is designed to meet minimum building standards, so it's nothing extravagant or excessive. Staff recommends approval of the setback exception modification by adoption of resolution SC-1-20.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have questions for staff? Okay, I see no commissioners' hands, so we will open the public hearing. Can we hear from the applicant? Is he available?
Yes, the applicant is in the waiting room. I will admit. He says it's still joining. I don't know if he's in yet.
Which I think really those are the most important numbers, not the national numbers or necessarily the California numbers, but really what's happening on the ground where we live. And those, to me, are the most important numbers to look at. The next thing we want to talk about here is SMC Strong. So SMC is a fund.
So that sounds like it's Jerry's in the meeting room.
Each of the following groups. So residents and families that have been impacted by COVID-19, maybe they've lost their jobs.
Excuse me, Mr. Cool, can you hear us?
Work with vulnerable populations like the homeless, domestic violence.
I'm looking for
food, and then
hold on one second.
last, small business. And so this
The other meeting.
can be awarded up to a $10,000 grant. So that is free and clear. You don't have to pay that back.
Sorry about that.
And the process will be managed by Timoteo.
Okay. That should be clear.
Madam Chair, would you like to recognize the applicant, please?
Yes, Mr. Cool?
Yes.
Yes, please. Hi. Yes, you may begin your presentation.
Well, basically what we're looking to do for this project is to have a side setback exception. Currently, the location of the front door of the building is at such an angle that in order to meet the code for a 3-foot platform, it will project approximately 9 inches into the side setback. So that's, we're looking for that side setback exception. And I think you have all the photographs and everything else available to you. Hopefully you've reviewed this at this point.
Yes, we have. Oh, continue.
I'm only seeing some of the people. I'm trying to figure out how to get a more of a there we go. Well, continue with what? I mean, that's the gist of the entire problem. We're projecting slightly 9 inches into the side setback in order to comply with the building codes.
Okay. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Okay, I see no one. Thank you, Mr. Cool.
Commissioner Gooding has raised his hand.
Oh, Mr. Gooding? Okay, Commissioner Gooding.
Yeah, and I have a question. It might be a question for staff, but it might be for the applicant. Back when the door was installed there, I've forgotten how many years ago, several years ago. What was the process or the thinking about what would happen to that door? I visited the site. I looked up at between the two buildings, and there's this door kind of marooned up there on the second floor. Was there any discussion back then between staff or that planning commission and the applicant about what access would ultimately look like?
There were plans to have stairs, and the plans on file at City Hall, which are somewhat limited, appear to show stairs on grade going all the way up to the front door.
And what if anything was done back then about seeking what you're seeking today? I mean, I'm just a little puzzled as to how you build a house. This is just process. I don't object to the issue in general, but how did we get from the door being built there to years and years later asking for permission for the setback?
If the stairs were originally planned to be on grade, there would be no need for a setback exception. Stairs on grade and the side setback are allowed.
Sure.
So all I can imagine is at the time when they were building it, they realized that there was not a possibility to put it on grade because the grade is not at that level, as you can see from the photographs.
Right.
So it was probably a contingency that happened upon construction. I was not involved with it at that point, so I have no idea what the thinking was or what the process was. At this point, we're just trying to solve the problem. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else with questions? Okay, I see no one. Okay, we'll open it up to the public to see if anyone has any questions, comments on this issue. So staff, we're going to wait, 3 minutes? Okay.
We've had the slide up for some time now. No one's been in the waiting room.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 minutes actually has passed, and we have not received any calls. So if you want, you can give a 30-second warning before asking to close the hearing, but we don't have any calls waiting.
Okay, we'll wait 30 seconds.
Okay.
Mr. Kroll, we're going to put you back in the waiting room, but we can bring you back if the commission has questions for you.
Okay, that's always a fun place.
Okay, thank you. Okay, may I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I move we close the public hearing.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, can we have a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
I think his phone is, his audio's off. It seems.
Yeah. He's muted.
Thank you.
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding? Muted as well. Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. Motion passes with 5 ayes. Okay. Any discussions? Anybody want to talk about this further, or are we pretty clear? Commissioner Gooding, you look like you want to say something.
all over my face. And I don't need to beat a dead horse about this, but I'm curious about, just for process, so I understand the next application roughly similar to this, how the door got built there before the stairs got okayed there.
Well, again, I think as Planner Robbins pointed out, there was an expectation of a design solution that would not have required a variance. The field conditions did not allow for that to be perfected. And as I understand it, there was alternative access provided to the residents from a different route. Is that true, Jeremiah? I believe that's the case. So ultimately, that particular entrance was not deemed necessary at the time.
So why is it deemed necessary now? I guess
it's the applicant's request to build it now. The city is not requiring them to build it now.
Commissioner Gomez, do you have a question?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, not necessarily a question. It was just an observation as I was walking the neighborhood along. There's quite a number of homes along Santa Clara that have somewhat interesting entrance points, and so I don't know what the thinking was. Obviously, 2004, I think, is the date that we heard, right, when the original. When there was original design, and now we're 16 years later, right? It seems to me like a reasonable compromise to allow for, I guess you would say, a more standard entryway for this particular home. And so that's really my reading of the situation. I think it's difficult to kind of parse out why it took so long to initiate building the staircase, but I do think it's a reasonable solution.
Thank you. Commissioner Mackin?
Yes, I just think the observation here is that the lot is 25 feet wide, which is unusual for a lot of those properties up there. And in terms of the setback, there is a fence dividing the property from the neighbors, and also the fact that this is a steel staircase and landing. I don't see any fire hazard. I don't see any difficulty in this, other than it's the technicality of 9 inches, and it's only a landing, and it's not at grade. It's way up high, and I think the homeowner would probably appreciate just to get a door that works in the front. So I would make a motion, if no one else has comments, that we...
Okay. You make a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Hey, staff, can you conduct a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Sayason?
Aye. Motion passes with 5 ayes. Okay. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing concerning design permit DP-1-20 and grading review EX-3-20221 Tulare Street, R-3 Residential District. The applicant requests a 36-month extension of previously approved design and grading approval for demolition of existing single-family dwelling and a construction of 3,690 square foot 3-unit residential building requiring 1,384 cubic yards of soil cut and export. Fred Herring is the applicant and Harold Watts is the owner. Staff, can we have the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the request before you tonight is for extension of 2 permits, design permit DP-2-18 and grading review EX-2-18, which were originally approved by the Commission on June 12, 2018, for construction of a new I'm sorry, there's a typo on the screen. Yeah, new 3-unit, 3,690 square foot residential condo building. And for grading review for approximately 1,384 cubic yards of soil cut and export from the site. So the requested extension would be for a 36-month extension of these permit approvals per the provisions of Chapter 17.42, our design permit chapter. Although I should note that the applicant is readying a building permit package in the near term. So here's an aerial to orient you to the site. So this is a large lot. It's approximately just under 6,400 square feet in size. You can see in this graphic here that it is in the R3 residential district, which that R3 district does run upward the first block or so of Tulare Street up from Brisbane Ave. So of course that allows multifamily development. Current development in the area varies between single-family dwellings, duplexes, and other multifamily buildings. So here are some photos of the property. So as you can see here, there is no curb cut currently on the property. So much of what appears to be the front yard of this lot is actually part of the Tulare Street right-of-way. So Tulare Street right-of-way is 50 feet wide. It's only paved about 20 feet of that overall 50-foot width for a lot of its length. So again, the property line for this property is actually about 18 feet beyond the edge of the pavement that you can see here in the photos. So the existing the property is developed with a single-family home. The home is, again, non-conforming in regards to parking. It also maintains a non-conforming south side setback. The home itself is, in addition to the front lot line being about 18 feet beyond the paved travelway, the home itself is 23 feet beyond the front property line. So the existing structure is set very high up onto this hillside lot, which is about 41% slope. There is parking in the public right-of-way adjacent to the property line. So there's room for about 2 parking spaces within the frontage of this lot. The lot frontage is about 56 feet. And here's some additional views of the subject property. Here's the existing site plan. So again, it shows the Tulare Street right-of-way. The property line is shown here in red, and the existing footprint of the existing structure is shown in purple. So moving on to a project overview of the project. So this is the proposed site plan, and again, I've highlighted the property line in red. So you can see that to provide parking for the project, the applicant's proposing it's a 3-car wide garage, but with the use of mechanical lifts, it would accommodate 6 cars in one garage. The new curb cut would be about 31 feet, and a new or improved public parking spot would be provided as well on the property frontage. You can see from the footprint of the building that the building would be broken up into 2 wings, and we'll look through the floor plan and explore that a little bit more. So here are our first and second floor plans. So again, on the first floor, you have the garage and access from the street, as well as required storage areas and recycling and garbage areas. The first unit is on the second floor. It's the smallest unit. It's 1 bedroom, and it would have a balcony overlooking the street. Moving up to the 3rd and 4th floors, units 2 and 3. So these units would be a bit larger, one about 1,200 square feet, the other about 1,300, and would essentially step up towards the slope of the hill. You can also see here that there are private patios in the interior kind of courtyard space between the 2 wings of the building. These would be private patios for the use of those individual units. And the rear yard would be shared open area for all units. So here you can see in the building elevations and sections that basically no part of the structure would appear to exceed 2 stories as seen from the street or from adjacent properties due to the way that it steps into the hillside. And we've also, I'll go into the exterior materials in a little more detail, but the applicant has proposed a mix of cement shiplap, siding, and stucco finishes. And here's some additional elevations from the side as well as the front. And this is a 3D model that is only available in digital form, but the applicant does have and previously provided to you guys in person. The applicants prepared a conceptual landscape plan. So the landscape plan proposes a variety of native low water use species on the site. It also proposes planting of 7 new trees. 1 tree will be removed from the site. It's a cedar tree, not permit protected under our updated tree ordinance. So again, 7 new trees planted on the site. There will be 2 trees removed from the public right-of-way that are 2 pines to allow for the driveway and public parking space. Okay, moving on to the findings and analysis for the design permit. So the findings are very detailed, and we provided extensive written findings in the staff report and in Exhibit B to the resolution. So I'll summarize them here. So our findings fall into 4 general categories, the first being neighborhood compatibility. So this particular design, again, is a step design. It results in a perceived scale of a 2-story building, which is consistent with the development pattern of both the existing structure and adjacent structures. There also provide adequate setbacks to eliminate impacts to adjacent properties in terms of light, limiting access to light and air. So the location of the building on the site, as well as the setbacks provided, would buffer the new structure from a proposed single-family home abutting the rear of the property, which at the time, it's now under construction actually at 99 Thomas, if you guys all remember that project. And there are no view impacts as it's not located on a mapped ridgeline. When it comes to building design, form, and details, the applicants proposed a unique and distinctive organic architectural design that mimics the natural topography of the site. So the step design, as well as the natural color palette, is compatible with the surrounding and development, physical development, as well as the existing natural environment. And the design also provides ample shared and private outdoor spaces that allow privacy for both residents on the site and neighboring properties. And regarding site access and circulation, so again, the design would accommodate, the parking requirement is actually only 5 spaces, so 6 spaces would be provided in the garage. The driveway could potentially be used for guest parking, but it would be in the public right-of-way. So technically, we couldn't recognize guest spaces within that driveway. But again, all required spaces are being provided. And the design would also retain a public parking space in the property frontage on the right-of-way. And in regards to landscaping, the proposed landscaping is in excess of the minimum required. Of course, with any design project, we defer final approval of the landscape plan, including species, as well as any necessary irrigation plans to the building permit stage, where we'll evaluate whether our water conservation and landscaping ordinance needs to apply. In regards to the grading, so again, there's no findings for grading in the municipal code, so we use guidelines that were adopted by the Commission in 2003. So the proposed grading is minimized. The majority of soil excavation and export is the minimum required to accommodate the required 5 on-site parking spaces considering the steep slope of the site and its location relative to the right-of-way, which again, 18 feet beyond and about 9 feet above. The step design also minimizes the required grading for the building pads at each floor. And the grading plan would also maintain existing grades at the north and south side lot lines where there's adjacent development. Regarding large exposed retaining walls, there are 2 walls that are around 6 to 7 feet in height at their tallest. The conditions of approval in the resolution would require those walls to be screened with vegetation or for them to be treated with different materials to break up the massing of the walls. So 2 street trees, again, are required to be removed. This is due to their proximity both to the proposed structure and to the new driveway. While not required, the applicant has proposed planting 7 new trees in the conceptual landscape plan on the site to maintain the canopy in the neighborhood. So I'll leave my staff report at that. We are recommending conditional approval of the extension request, which would extend the permits again by 36 months, subject to the findings and conditions of approval contained in the resolution. And I'm available for any questions should you have any.
Thank you. I don't have any questions. Does anyone have questions for staff? Commissioner?
Maybe this.
Sorry. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Gomez. You have a question.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I forgot to raise my hand. Apologies. Just a quick question. So we roughly 2 years ago had approved this, and I do recall the presentation. And I didn't see it in the write-up. What's been? I remember there was a lot of interest around this project because of just concerns around the housing crisis, and so being able to put in, a 3-unit, and it seemed like the design was appropriate for the slope and the area. What's been the delay in getting the building permit?
So we do have the applicant who can address that if you'd like, but I can too. But I know he's prepared to address that. Okay,
because that's just the question I have. Is what I thought was, I thought this would have been built by now, I guess, and so it's just kind of an interesting observation here.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Mackin.
Yes, thank you. I remember this well because Commissioner Patel had asked for 2 stipulations be added, one being specifications for the mechanical lifts in the garage to make sure that those were actually implemented, and that does appear in the draft. So I just wanted to point that out. And secondly, that there was a private sewer line that we were told ran through the property. Have we had any follow-up on that at all? And if not, just would like to know.
Again, the applicant can speak to that, as I think that relates to the whole building permit readiness. But I would just note that we also added that condition the commission had in 2018 to the draft resolution as well. That appears in the resolution that your intent is for whatever replacement may be warranted for the applicant to work with the city engineer and private property owners to make that happen. But yeah, the applicant could speak to that, what the status is.
Thank you. Any more questions for staff? Okay, then I'll open the public hearing and we can hear from the applicant.
Okay, first I'm going to put up our number for the public. Okay, and now I'm going to admit the applicant. Okay, Fred Herring, are you with us?
I am with you.
Okay, Chair, go ahead and address the applicant.
Hello, Mr. Herring. If you've been watching, a couple of our commissioners have questions for you, but I don't know if you wanted to say anything first, or if you remember their questions, you can go ahead and
I was muted and did not hear the questions, but I suppose maybe I could give you this is a project that began some time ago and was earlier approved by the commission, and I thought I'd give you an update of both the time in between and then a brief description of what goes into my work on a design on a hillside like that.
Okay.
The update is pretty simple. Since the time that the project was approved by the commission, we've done the construction drawings and the structural calculations and the like. So we're prepared to make a building permit application, and the reason we have not is the world has been shut, and among the places that were shut were the attorneys who were doing the condominium documentation for the project. Other than that, we've done the whole thing and have a roll of, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 60 drawings ready to go in the door. So that's the update on the status of our work on the project. As for the project itself, you can see from my drawings, and probably would have heard from Julia's presentation, this is it's a very steep uphill hillside. It's next to a vacant lot on which I earlier designed a house for which the town has now approved a building permit. So it's designed kind of carefully to work with that other building. And because it's a steep uphill lot, it inevitably requires a lot of grading. The vast majority of the grading is to create parking. The property line is upslope from the public street far enough so that by the time you reach it, you're about 10 feet underground. So at the back of your garage, you're well more than 20 feet underground. So this massive chunk of earth goes away in order to create the parking that will be there for these 3 units. The existing duplex, those 2 units have no parking on site whatsoever. There are what I'm sure the city engineer would describe as substandard street parking, which goes away. There's, I don't know how many, 3 or 4 of those in front of this lot. In the end, we provide the 6 interior parking places for the 3 units, and we leave room for another parking place at the street, only that one's actually large enough to not have to impinge on the traveled way. The building itself, you can see from my drawings, it's meant to step into the hill and gradually go up it, so you don't loom up as would be the case if you didn't do the grading. I have almost half a century of experience designing on these kinds of lots, and I know from experience that the initial weeks or months, while you're digging what's going to appear to the entire neighborhood like an open pit mine, makes everyone wonder why would we possibly have done that. But after the gigantic hole is filled with the building, so the building seems to fit its hillside rather than rise up out of it, it usually results in the same neighbors who were unhappy with the idea of the excavation coming to me and saying, "You're right, it did fit." If you have particular questions about these 3 units, or even for that matter about the approved house next door, please ask, and I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gomez, did you want to ask any questions of the applicant?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine.
Okay. So Mr. Herring, I'm just curious, have there been delays beyond the current pandemic situation that we find ourselves in? I was just trying to understand the kind of the timeline delays on getting the building permit established, as I think, and I don't want to misspeak for some of the other commissioners, but I think we were anticipating this project would have been well underway, and so I'm just trying to get a little bit more.
The answer to that is, so had I expected that.
Okay.
I wish I had a different reason to give you, but the main reason is my own schedule. I'm madly overworked.
Okay.
I'm glad to say I've now done the work. So my expectations and yours from the past are likely to be realized pretty promptly this time.
Okay. No, I appreciate the honesty. I think in the broader community interest of increasing our housing stock, I recall the conversation, which is roughly 2 years ago, right? Where we have been looking at projects where we are contributing to increasing the available stock for viable housing with respect to the broader housing crisis we find ourselves in here in the state. So I think from my perspective, I'm encouraged that this project's going to get going, and I realize that you had some delays. So I'm sure some of the other commissioners have some questions for you.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Gomez. Commissioner Mackin, did you still have a question?
Yes. Mr. Herring, could you please bring us up to date? There was a private sewer line that we were told ran through the property. Has there been any attempt to contact the neighbors and verify what the status of that is?
This is the sewer line that's said to be there. That although I've been out there and the property owner has been out there, the geotechnology guys have been out there, we can't find any sign of this, and there's no sign of a lateral reaching the public main in the street. That's just, as far as I know, it isn't there. I mean, if there actually is one, we're obviously going to find it when we make the excavations for the building. And we have a route down both sides of this property where we could reroute if there's an existing sewer, even though there's no easement. I mean, obviously, whoever that is, whose sewer connection that is, will need to get reconnected. And I'm happy to have that a condition of the project. In fact, it might already be. I don't remember Julia's conditions. But if there's a sewer line there, we're not going to leave the neighbor with no way to connect his sewer.
But, have you identified the actual neighbor asserting that there is a line there?
No, I haven't. I don't even know that neighbor's name.
Okay, that name came up in our previous meeting in 2018. And if you've not had the pleasure of dealing with all the unknown and hidden sewer lines in Brisbane, that's not uncommon.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. See, that would, in my long experience, that would be a first. But if it's common in Brisbane, I don't doubt that at all. But as I say, I'm prepared to accommodate it because we'll be associated not just with the design of the building, but with the construction as well.
I might just suggest you contact planning staff and try to facilitate doing that before you get going, because
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Your project, and it would certainly, it's going to interfere with someone else's life, the neighbor, if their line is disconnected.
Yes, it certainly would.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Herring. Does anyone else have a question for the applicant?
I have one question.
Okay. Commissioner Powell?
Do you have any intent or at this time any knowledge of putting any ADUs on this particular property?
Do I have any intent to put additional ADUs beyond the 3 units that we're proposing to build? No, I don't. I mean, this kind of project, small, dense housing, is something in which I have a particular interest. I mean, I've always wanted an opportunity to design a building. I mean, these are not large units, but they're large enough. And most of the time, units like that are simply, cellular, 1, 2, 3 stacked. And both from a designer standpoint, they're dull, but they're not a place I personally would want to live. I'm hopeful that these buildings, when we get them built, are places you and I would both like to move into.
So, just to follow up, you don't have any specific plans to turn the garage area into an ADU?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
There's no concrete plans right now to turn the garage area into an ADU?
Oh, no, there is not. In order to satisfy what I think is the appropriate number of parking places and not have to ask for any, variances. This is a tall garage, so that the parking stalls are stacked, and we completely use the space of that garage. There's be no practical way, unless we were to sacrifice a bunch of parking, to turn that into an ADU. And it's deeply underground. It might not be an ADU we'd want to live in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Herring. So, any more questions before I let Mr. Herring go? Okay, no questions. Thank you, Mr. Herring.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now we'll open it up to the public if they have any comments.
So I do not have anyone waiting in our waiting room. So would you like to give a warning for folks to call if they want to make comments?
Okay, yes, another 30 seconds.
Okay. Okay, 30 seconds has expired.
Thank you. May I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
Okay, staff, can you conduct the voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Gooding?
Aye.
Mackin?
Aye.
Patel?
Aye.
Saison?
Aye. The motion passes with 5 ayes. Okay, discussions. Anyone else? Anyone have any comments? Commissioner Mackin.
Just for the record, I'd like to get it back in the record that the person that spoke out about the private sewer line, they're a Brisbane resident. Their name is Boya, B-O-Y-A, Yan, Y-A-N.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Gomez?
No, I think Commissioner Mackin brought up a good point with the sewer line, and I would expect the applicant and the contractor to be able to figure out a solution there. So I do think that is key to ensure that any underground facilities that are running through the property that currently aren't located, that those get relocated appropriately.
Thank you. And staff, regarding the sewer line, wouldn't that be something that the city engineer would look into as well?
Yeah, it's definitely when they go through their utility plan with the city engineer, they would have to, if they were going to replace the line or if there was an existing line, that would show up on their utility plan documents that he reviews.
Okay. Okay, if there's no more comments, anyone want to make a motion?
I would move to adopt the staff recommendation to approve the extension.
In a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, can we have the voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye. Passes with 5 ayes. Okay, next item is items initiated by staff.
Well, Madam Chair, I don't have very much, just to remind the Commission that the ADU ordinance that you recommended approval of will be going to the City Council later in June. So the Council will consider that in their second meeting in June, I believe. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Items initiated by the Commission. If anyone has anything, you can raise your hand or say. Okay, I see no one. Okay, may I have a motion for us to adjourn until the next meeting of June 11th, 2020?
I make a motion.
In a second?
A second.
Okay, staff, can you conduct a voice vote?
Commissioner Gomez?
Aye.
Commissioner Gooding?
Aye.
Commissioner Mackin?
Aye.
Commissioner Patel?
Aye.
Commissioner Saison?
Aye, the motion passes with 5 ayes, and the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.